Thank you for checking out Fieldman's Municipal Market Update for the week of April 15th, 2025. I'm recording this on April 18th, so I do have a little insight that might not be captured in these pages, and this is our 60th posting. Fieldman is a municipal advisor based in California, but does work throughout the country. The Municipal Market Update is a monthly update of the municipal market, but not in great depth or detail, and we try not to be technical. And when we are, I try to break it down kind of point by point, which I'm going to do with the first slide coming up here. So this is a chart where we just basically crammed a bunch of things that are related onto a graph. We made 3 graphs that were simple into one graph that's complicated. So let's start with the green bars. The green bars are the Fed funds rate and the changes over time. And you can see there that it's moved the key for that is the far right. And so you can see if it's above 0, it was an increase. If it's below 0, it was a decline in the Fed funds rate. So you can see 22 through 23, we had increases. And then in 24, we had some decreases there. And then one thing that tracks that is that yellow line, which is the aggregate of all those changes. And so what you'll see is it's stair-stepping upward as the green bars are above 0, and it's stair-stepping downward when it's below 0 there. You can see that as well. And then one item that oftentimes we use to kind of see how it's tracking is a 10-year U.S. Treasury. And you can see at some points when there's anticipation, it tends to follow, and then it can break at times as well. But right now, when you look at the far right there, you can see some up and downs around where that Fed funds rate is. And the key for that is the vertical axis on the left side. So this is kind of for us, just kind of get a sense for what some anticipation is and what's taken place over time with interest rates. Now, this is our AAA MMD, and we're looking at the 30-year maturity. And if you see a month there, it's basically the activity happened the prior month. And so in March, you can see we went from 3.93 to 4.19. Everything was calm because this was all done. This was all this data was taken into consideration before Liberation Day, which was April 2nd. And what Liberation Day it was or is essentially tariffs that the United States put on other countries. And I think one of the things that what caught folks off guard was why it was discussed as reciprocal. In this case, reciprocal meant looking at trade deficits and tariffs. So if someone had a 3% tariff on us, it wasn't just a 3% tariff back. What I think a lot of us would have thought it was reciprocal. It was if we have a trade deficit and they have a percentage, let's try to come up with the United States percentage that would counterbalance those two. That's what reciprocal was meant. I'm not sure many in the marketplace expected that. As a result, we had some pretty dramatic changes. This also came at a time when folks are about ready to pay taxes on April 15th. So you probably have less money in the market. You had something that the market was not expecting, which I think in general terms would be considered inflationary. And so you saw quite a market. This is, we're trying to find a way to show kind of what's taking place, and why this shows the numbers. I'm not sure it really captures just how dramatic it is. I don't think we've seen these amount of changes in such a shorter period of time, at least in my career, which goes back to 2001. So on 4/4, so that Friday after Liberation Day, we showed where the MMD is for 1 through 30 on some specific maturities there. Then check out that Monday, increase by 30 basis points. So if you look at that 26 maturity, while it was at 2.43, now it's at 2.73. All right. Then the next day, up another 25. Then the next day, up 42. Then finally, on that 4/10, we saw a decline. But then half of that went back up on 4/11. Then on 4/14 and the days since then, we've seen minor 4/14 dramatic decreases. Since then, we've seen less dramatic decreases. So some of that far right, that total change has been eroded since we gathered this data. But hopefully the takeaway from that is one of the most disruptive markets we've seen. Kind of what might be causing that other than those data points that we've talked about. One of the things, there may not be as many folks willing to own and hold bonds and be a market maker, if you will, as there were in historical markets. And there can be any number of reasons. Large firms not necessarily being involved in underwriting as much as they used to be. It could also be that the funds are increasingly concentrated, even though there's a lot of ticker symbols for ETFs and mutual funds. They're all kind of warehoused at a few firms. And so we're kind of speculating on what might be causing some of the disruptions in such a great fashion, because we have had a lot of dramatic news in the history of municipal bonds. And so the fact that this 1 week or 2 weeks had such dramatic changes, there are probably some studying after the fact of what caused that. But a takeaway for, I think, all of us is there were very dramatic changes, and the market was very choppy over the last 2 weeks. And one of the things that was a cause for that was a good amount of supply. You can see when those bars go over those lines, we're bucking some historical trends. And I think some of that's going to continue. We think there's a lot more coming. And when we look at forward calendars, that suggests that as well. So there's a lot of supply. And so unless the demand continues to grow, we can continue to see some upward pressure on rates. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this, we have a whole team of individuals that can help provide more feedback and information. We have their contact for our registered municipal advisors at Fieldman here. I thank you for listening and also encourage you to reach out if you have anything you want to see from us. We will be revamping this soon, and so if there's anything specific that you want us to address, we would love to hear from you. But once again, thank you for listening.